Hello, ladies and gents. I'm Glenn, aka Nurse Dad, former Navy hospital corpsman and current ER nurse, and welcome to my channel. In this episode, I'm going to have a discussion with RN Emilee. She is a pediatric nurse. She works in a trauma burn unit or burn trauma unit. Why can't I get these? I can't get it right. Every time I say it, I can't get it right. In Washington, D.C., I also went to nursing school with her. This interview is going to give you some great information for pediatric care, and we're also going to discuss the profession, life. She does annual missions to Ghana in Africa. She just got back, and we're going to talk about our African experience. Like I said, she goes every year, medical mission. I was in Djibouti, Africa in 2013, 2014, one of those years, attached to the Marines as a Navy hospital corpsman. And we're going to have a pretty entertaining conversation, deep and entertaining. Now, I thought in this episode, I would be showcasing some new technology. I'm utilizing a new camera, at least a new camera for me. It's a Sony RX100. I got it a few years ago, but it's a lot better than my cell phone or the standard webcam that I was using. I'm also no longer filming on Zoom. The Zoom has been good to me. I recommend Zoom for everybody, but I have a new program. And I was going to tie this all together in this episode and be all fancy pants. But during the filming of the episode, I ran into technical difficulty after technical difficulty. In fact, it got so bad that the day after I filmed, I thought that the entire episode was destroyed. I won't get into the details, but it had to do with soundtracks that recorded on top of each other and video that would not sync up. It was a disaster. I managed to salvage this podcast. Now, when you watch it for the first 14 minutes, you're going to see Emilee and I side by side. There's going to be no fancy directing. It's just going to be her side of the screen and my side of the screen. And then after 14 minutes, you won't see me again. You'll hear me, but you won't see me again. Emilee will occupy the entire screen. You'll hear me speak. You won't see me. And that'll be for the duration of the podcast. I appreciate your patience. Like I said, when I listen to a podcast, I might be driving, working out. I do like the podcast where there is a video. And like I said, for 14 minutes, you'll see both of us side by side. You'll see Nurse Emilee the entire time. And the conversation sounds great. And the content and what we're actually talking about. But the visuals won't be up to par with what I wanted to present to you folks today. I apologize for that, but it is an incredible discussion. I'm so happy that I was able to salvage it. We would have filmed it again, but it's not quite the same, right? This is the original conversation between Emilee and myself. And one of the best things about doing this is I get to catch up with old friends or talk to people, reach out to people that I really want to have a discussion with and actually have a discussion. In this podcast, we're just people, ideology aside. I will say I got so frustrated with what happened and the possibility that I lost everything that for the first time in maybe 20 years, I went outside and I actually teared up. I didn't think I was capable. The closest thing I get to tearing up or even crying is having a few drinks and watching a movie like Braveheart. I don't know what it is about a man who lost the love of his life, wielding an axe into his enemy's face that just pulls at my heartstrings. But that's usually the only way I can put on the waterworks. But I did tear up when I thought that this episode was gone. Without further ado, this is my interview with RN Emilee. Enjoy it. Let's kick this pig. You work at a pediatric burn trauma or trauma burn unit.
Yeah.
And we went to nursing school together.
We did many years ago.
You're currently in DC. That's where you work.
Yeah, I love it. I work and live there for 6 years now.
What got you down there?
My family, I'm from the DMV area. I lived like about 30 minutes from DC and I grew up there. And then I knew after nursing school, I wanted to come back home and be with my family. So I chose DC as the lucky number. And they also have a fantastic children's hospital there. So it was like a double whammy and it worked
Yeah,
out.
you're in the middle of everything.
Yeah. It's easy to get to everything basically.
You're a night shifter, right?
No, I'm not. I don't.
Oh, I thought you were.
I do. We have to rotate. So it's,
Oh, it's the
yeah,
rotation.
we
Okay.
rotate. So it's a couple weeks of nights and then a month of like day shift. I don't mind it. It's not terrible. But yeah, it has pros and cons to it.
Well, you just got back from Africa. I'm going to get into that later in the podcast. You do that every year, right?
I do. I go every April. It's so much fun and rewarding. I absolutely love it.
How long have you been doing that for?
This will be my 4th year.
Wow. I see it on Instagram and that's exciting.
It's honestly, I go it when I land every time. I feel like the butterflies and everything. It's very humbling and very rewarding at the same time. You get to help a lot of people.
I was at the Horn of Africa, but more for military reasons. To do what you're doing, that's amazing.
Yeah, I encourage a lot of people to try it out. I think that once you get into it and you're on your first mission, is what we like to call, or
Yeah.
your first medical trip, you get like this great motivation to keep going back and doing it every year, which is rewarding in itself.
Traveling and especially seeing the world in a way that's not a tourist friendly area really sticks with you.
It does. But I have to say that Ghana itself is a very welcoming country. They really wrap their arms around us when we come. And it's a beautiful, West Africa is beautiful in my opinion, but
Yeah.
there are always pros and cons, right, to any travel where you go. But Ghana holds a very special place in my heart. And I do enjoy the people.
I definitely want to get into that later in the podcast, how people could do that, what your experiences were. When I knew you in nursing school, did you have in the back of your head that you wanted to go into pediatrics, or is this something you fell into?
No, I knew right away. I knew probably before nursing school that I wanted to do pediatrics. I've always known I wanted to be a nurse. And then I think like a year prior to nursing school, I just knew I wanted to do pediatrics specifically. I love children. I love working with them. I love helping them, seeing them grow, especially in a hospital setting. A lot of the chronic kids are there for a long time and be able to help them. Something special, especially in that young age. You can really make a difference. So I've always known from the get-go.
I asked that because my first job was a step down ICU in West Philly, and simply because they called me back. But you knew what you wanted to do.
Oh, of course. I've known for, like I said, like up to a year. I just love it. I absolutely love pediatrics.
You from a big family?
No, I'm not. I just have one sibling and then my mom and dad. Half my family's
You have a
Colombian.
grandmother, right? In Colombia?
Yeah, no, I have a grandmother.
Yeah, I've seen those videos.
Yeah. My abuelita's from Colombia and my mom. So a lot of my family is still back over there in Colombia. I visit frequently to South America to see them. I'm going again in July, actually.
So where does that affinity for children come from?
That's a good question. I think it comes from, it's like a bigger picture. I'm the oldest. I've always taken that role seriously, even though I just have one sibling. My sister's 2 years younger. And I think growing up, her and I were very close, and I would always kind of play as like the mom-sister rule, mom-daughter rule, and take.
Much younger is she?
She's 2 years younger. She's 28.
Okay, that's like my situation.
Yeah. But I see her as she's like my child, like my baby.
Oh, okay.
So we're very close. And I think that's where it started, being that mom role and helping her throughout school and things is where the pediatric kind of focus.
Heritage from your grandmother and your mother, it seems, right?
Yeah, for sure. Especially from my mom. She's very mama bear, but also a nurturing mom. And I think that's what especially I have grown to like inherit, I would say.
It may be obvious, but what are some of the more common pediatric burn traumas that you see from mild to severe?
Yeah, from mild, we see a lot of toddlers like burning their hands from the treadmill or the soles of their feet, all the way up.
You said from the treadmill?
Yeah, from the treadmill. We get a lot of hand burns from the treadmill. A parent will be like
What
running
mom
on
and
the
dad are
treadmill.
running? And
Yeah, exactly.
oh,
Yeah, they're so like the parent will be running on the treadmill, and then the little toddler who's able to walk independently and move around is sneaks up behind and wants to see what their dad or mom are running on and will put their hand on.
That segues to another question I was going to ask about prevention. I have a couple of treadmills.
Oh, yeah, we tell parents to put gates around the treadmill, especially if they're in use and you're using it, or to keep the toddler preoccupied with another parent in the house or another sibling that's older than 10 that could watch the toddler. And then when you're not using it, keeping the gate around it as well to prevent any usage of it.
In various emergency departments, like I said, I'm a local travel nurse. They made me the pediatric nurse for the day. And I'll never forget one kid, about a 4-year-old girl. I guess mom had a cup of tea on the counter and it was hot. And she pulled the cup toward her. And luckily the burn was like between her nipples. It wasn't anything that wouldn't heal and required plastics, but I'll never forget that. What have you seen that is so preventable that parents can start doing today?
That's such a common burn that we see. I'd say probably 80% of our burns are from that age range of kids wondering what their parents are doing and pulling it down off the counter. We tell parents to keep the handles of the pots away from like the edge of the stove and putting them to the side of the handle so that if you do have a toddler that's curious walking around, that they're not going to just pull down on it right away. They can't really reach it. The other way that I'd say is keep your kid out of the kitchen. I know it's really difficult because they want to see what mom and dad are doing.
The open concept houses.
Exactly. Exactly. So it's
So like the
really
living room and the kitchen are the same room.
correct. So that's entirely difficult. I've noticed that a lot of parents are using this kitchen helper stool and basically putting their toddlers in this. It's like a long stool that they use for a
It's
game.
like a box, right?
Yeah. And it helps
Yeah.
conceal them in this one location while they can also help mom and dad out in the kitchen or in other places where it might be a little dangerous, but they can keep them confined in that one seal and also be a part of the experience. Is
So I was going to ask you, how close is too close to the stove? You're just don't even have them in the kitchen.
Yeah, I'd say less than a foot or two away is still too close. A lot of parents like to keep their kids to the side of them, which is fine too. I'd say if you're working like actively on the stove or the grill, I'd say keep them more than a foot away for sure. But they can still be entertained by asking them to look at the tomatoes or handing you things and being a part of the experience.
If bowling on the treadmill, I just never thought you would say something like that. That's interesting.
Yeah, the toddlers, you won't even know it either. You'll be running on it, and the 2-year-old or 3-year-old will come up and just want to touch the bottom of it. And then, boom, you have a burn right there.
What other mild injuries have you seen?
We see a lot of foreign bodies. Kids love to put things in their mouth, especially toddlers and at that range. A lot of batteries, coins. We see a lot of those. Those come in too, along with our smaller burns. The burns happen in a range of age. So like a toddler burn will be different than like a school age burn or
Oh,
a
so
teenage burn. A lot of teenagers and a lot of like 12-year-olds like to watch TV and they'll sit on the couch with their hot noodles or their soup. And all of a sudden they move one way and it goes into their lap. So you see a lot of thigh
okay, lower
burns.
body. The toddlers, I would imagine, they're just touching everything.
Touching everything. A lot of the face, neck, chest is a lot of the burns that we see in that age range. And then as you move up in age, you're doing different activities. So the lap with the soup, sitting on the couch, watching TV or a movie is a common one for a teenager, for sure.
This is a tough one to separate from, even as a medical professional, because it's children. It's always the thing that gets me whenever I see these patients.
Yeah, it's very difficult, especially if you have kids at home and you try to compartmentalize the parent in you while also being the healthcare provider at the bedside. It's very difficult, even if you don't have kids at home as well.
It's going to be tough.
Yeah, it's very tough. I also think it's very tough for the newer nurses that come in that we precept and orient to the floor. They've never seen anything like this. You don't really see this in clinical when you're in nursing school. And we are a level 1 trauma center. So we get a lot of the bigger burns as well as the small burns. So it's a learning experience, but it's also a life experience that you're learning as well. So that can be very difficult. And it is difficult, even for experienced nurses still to this day.
What do you do when a child swallows a battery?
If your child is at home and you see them actively put it in their mouth, take them to the ER right away, because then we can just safely take it out immediately. And
How do you do that?
they have to go down with a scope through the esophagus down the mouth, and they can 9 times out of 10 pull it out. If it's a coin and it's stuck in the esophagus, they come in. We either take them right away, or if it's safe enough to wait till the morning, we take it out in the morning under general anesthesia.
When I was 4 or 5, I actually choked on a quarter,
Oh no!
and I ran right to my mother, and she stuck her finger, and I threw up all over her, and thank God she wasn't in the bathroom.
And that happens. Kids will swallow batteries, and especially the circle batteries that you see nowadays in toys and the newer batteries, I'd say. And parents don't know, right? Your 2-year-old is able to talk, but sometimes they're not. We see a lot of 18-month-olds come in, or even 14-month-olds that are just learning to walk and move, and they see everything in sight they want to put in their mouth. And then a week or two goes by, and all of a sudden they're showing signs that something is wrong. And 9 times out of 10, they come in saying, "Oh, we went to urgent care. They said it was like URI symptoms, like an upper respiratory," because the number one sign is drooling. If your child starts to drool a lot and they can't control it, and their saliva is just building up, 9 times out of 10, there's something that they swallowed.
I didn't know that. I had
Yeah,
no
that's
idea.
the number one sign. And the drooling is, a lot of PCPs will be like, "Oh, they're teething. They're just teething. It's okay," which they are teething, right? Because it is that.
Mhm. But we've all seen teething. That's the
But
difference between just
it,
continuous
yeah,
saliva, right?
yeah. Sometimes if it's too long of a wait, parents are unaware that the battery starts to erode and can erode into the esophagus, or it can erode in through the
Oh, man.
intestine. That's a whole different problem that we have. So those are some.
And as parents, one of the things we're always supposed to do is cover all the outlets. Have you seen electrical burns?
We see electrical burns, but we see a lot of electrical burns in teenagers. That is a thing that we see. A lot of the
Like
TikTok,
cell phones exploding or?
no, a lot of TikTok experiments.
Huh.
Yeah.
Well, I guess something with electricity then.
It has something to do with electricity, the outlets, or connecting wires to one another to different, like you strip open the wire and you're creating like an electrical connection as like a game. It's a lot of that. Or we see a lot of chemical burns from doing experiments that we
Right.
see online. Those are the bigger ones that we see. When kids are curious, especially school age teenagers want to try it out because they see it online and they want to try it and see if it works like a magic show, and it goes the wrong way and they get severely burned from that. Those are our bigger burns that come out of it.
I'm not trying to freak people out who might be watching this about, let's talk about some injuries, but it wakes me up
Sure.
to hear this. It makes me think. I do want to roll into what are some of the more severe injuries that you've seen?
Yeah. So some of the severe burns are, like I said, the chemical and electrical burns. And honestly, as well as hot water with like oil, if you're making pasta and you put oil in it, that can cause a full thickness burn very easily. It's very difficult to debride. So we see a lot of those in the kitchen.
Right. A story where they said that the oil was worse enough, but because they were cooking chicken, it had all that raw
Then you have
chicken meat. And,
yeah. Yeah. And you have like then you have the salmonella. That's
yeah.
the chicken sitting on it. A lot of kids like to do like marshmallows outside, like doing fire, making fire from like sticks.
Just doing that 2 days ago. For s'mores.
Which is fine.
I have a little fire. I actually didn't put a fire pit in because I was nervous about little kids standing around it and the wind. And
yeah, that is one of the bigger burns. Like they're making like the fire and you put the fuel in to start the fire. And sometimes that has a counter effect. And instead of it going into the fire pit, it literally will light their shirt on fire. And then it's hard to get that to heal. It takes longer for sure. So
people do their hair, they have hairsprays, like it's flammable materials. You don't know what you're wearing.
oh yes, especially those experiments that you see online, rubbing alcohol. You're doing like a chemical experiment that you see in science class online, or you're watching a video and other kids doing it and you want to do it. we see a lot of those burns become really bad. One thing goes wrong, then all of a sudden the fire just it goes onto them. It's really sad.
What's the rhythm of a shift for you? How many patients do you get? Is it more of an emergency room setting, or are these admitted patients that you're taking care of?
They're admitted patients. Our ratio by protocol at this hospital on our floor is 4-1, but the amount of patient load with each patient is a lot. So we try to keep it to a 3-1. And if we have a big burn, then we try to do a 2-1.
Yeah. You have shifts in the ER where it's one in, one out, and then you get people who they require a lot of work.
Exactly.
It seems like all your patients require a lot of work.
My patients are great. Don't get me wrong. They're fantastic.
No, of course.
See people from all over. They're fantastic. But the workload of these patients, since it's a surgical floor. You have a lot of drains and lines and medications and drips that you're giving and they're receiving, and you have to switch out, that it can become you need a 3-1 or you need a 2-1 for a couple hours at least for patient safety as well.
Even the care you have to give them, the time in the room that you have to spend with them, it's a lot.
Yeah, it is. It is a lot. And you want to make sure you're giving 100% to that family and that patient, and giving all of you to that patient at that time, and creating a bond with them and making them feel safe, especially in the pediatric world. We like to tell our kids that you're in a safe space. We're here to help you. And that's
Because
important.
one of the things I got from being the pediatric nurse or just working a clinical in the children's hospital with an adult patient, they understand logic and this is why I'm here. This is why you're here. This is what we need to do. But children require a lot more. They get scared in the dark and they record, where's my mom? Where's my dad? How do you approach that?
Yeah, we have a model where at Children's we have this whole like patient care model that we like encompass, and it includes the family and the parents and the patient in it to make it a whole. You're not only taking care of the patient that's like a 3-year-old, you're also in some ways taking care of the parent. It's like a team effort in that room. And we try to look at it as that, including the parents, and the plan of care is highly important, especially if parents aren't there and the kid is there alone. We try our best to include the patient in making sure that they feel safe with us. And if that requires having a sitter at the bedside or having us do like hourly rounds on the patient, that's the best thing for them. Sometimes we even bring the kids into the nursing station if they are able to safely and clinically wise appropriate for that. They help them feel safe and show them our work and what we do in color in front of us as we're charting or we're taking a lunch break with everybody there to make them feel a part of it. And it's important.
Especially when they're spending a few days. Yeah, because it could hour after hour is passing in the hospital with an adult patient. And it breaks my heart to have to see them just lay in their bed and watch television for several hours. That probably doesn't fly as much with a child.
No, it doesn't at all. So we are very lucky to have a child life person on our floor, on our unit. And she comes around every day with activities for the day or for the month or the week even, that are able to help keep the children entertained and distracted by what's actually going on with them. It's a lifesaver. It's amazing to see kids that are artistic children that love to draw and like to express themselves in that manner come to life basically when they get like coloring books and pencils and they can play bingo on the TV and win prizes. It's rewarding and motivating for them to progress forward in their stay with us. And that's how
Because there has to be more like I'm sorry, I cut you off again.
no,
Sorry.
it's okay. That is how we keep them entertained, but also active in their own care and helping them get home as a goal. We have many techniques for that.
Because it has to be more like a daycare or even a school for a lot of these kids.
Sometimes for the chronic kids, I think that they're there for a longer period of time, that like our bigger burns, when they come to our floor, the goal is for them to work with PTOT, progress in their care. And then the goal is to either go to rehab or go home. So those type of patients are there longer.
What are the biggest concerns for parents?
What we're doing to them. I call it closed loop communication. I'm the type of nurse that comes in and likes to talk to them. We have it like it's called a sit to talk in the beginning of your shift for every room that you have. You're supposed to, and I even educate the newer nurses on it. Go in, speak to the parents, tell them the plan of care, ask their concerns, tell them how this is what we're going to be doing. These are when the vitals are done. This is the medication that's going to be due. I can write it on the board for you if you're a visual person and likes to see it. It's how you can get a hold of me. And then, do you have any concerns or questions? And then you know that at the beginning of your shift, they're part of the care and then they're less concerned. If you go in there and not communicate and closed loop communicate the issues, problems, questions that are arising for them, they tend to regress and then they tend to have a problem, which I understand it's your child, right? It's not.
Yeah, parents are naturally possessive of
Correct.
their children.
And we're strangers. And you have to understand that to be a pediatric nurse, I think. It's not an adult world where an adult is going to listen and just say, okay, these are children and their parents are highly concerned, which is appropriate. We want them to be concerned.
You were talking about new nurses on your unit. Do they hire right out of nursing school for your unit?
So we hire in 2 phases, but for me, yes, they did. I was very fortunate enough. I waited about 4 months and I did like a school nurse until the application pool opened up in the early winter because they have certain cycles that they let newer grads apply to. So I just waited a couple months and did a school nurse gig and then I was hired right away. Yeah, as a new grad.
And DC is also what you wanted because obviously Philadelphia, where you went to nursing school, where we both went to nursing school, is probably what you were looking for in pediatrics.
Yeah, it was. I wanted to get a little bit closer to home. I love Philly and I love my time in Philly to the point where I'm an Eagles fan now. But I wanted to get home. I wanted to be closer to my family since I'm already close to them.
And take care. Is your sister nearby as well?
She is. She is very close. She's actually closer to my parents than I am. She lives in the same little town as they do. So she's very close nearby. I see her often.
I want to get into Africa.
Sure.
You were doing this for 4 years. Was it somebody who was doing medical missions that inspired you? How did you get into this?
Yeah, that's a great question. I have a friend at work who used to work with me at the Children's Hospital. Her and I became close friends. And one year she went on this medical trip. And when she came back, I was like, where have you been? And then she explained to me what she was doing through the nonprofit she went with and what it was all about. And I, that night, was like, sign me up. And she
How
literally,
long was the trip for?
the trip is for 14 days. We go a little bit longer. We go a couple of days extra. But if you're just doing the medical trip, it's about 10 to 12 days.
Do you use your vacation time for that?
I do. I do.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I do.
Is it always to Ghana?
It is always to Ghana. It's with this nonprofit that is specifically for this location in Ghana. And we travel around the coast of Ghana. So we go to a couple of different cities. And then my friend and I do our own traveling that we like to do on the outside of it.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Is it like anything else? You have your working hours, so to speak, and then your time is yours?
Somewhat when we have a week of surgeries that we're doing, it's like it's like work. We really try to get every patient that we have on the list to get seen and helped. So we do it as safe as possible. And we have a lot of staff that are like volunteers that we can rotate through to make sure that we get a lot of patients done. I think this year we did 239 altogether, which
Wow.
was a record breaking for us for that year.
What are the sort of surgeries you do? What age range?
Yeah, good question. So on the April trips, we do a lot of general surgery, plastics, and then a little bit of ortho if they can. But a lot of the surgeries are hernias. Hernias are a big thing in Ghana, especially the labor. I'm doing all the labor.
Just from the labor.
Yeah. So we do a lot of inguinal, a lot of umbilical, even ventricle hernias. That is the major population of surgeries that we do, we have this ongoing inside thing where it's like, what's the next surgery? And we all say, oh, it's a hernia.
Okay.
Yeah. So
What's your team would usually look like? How many doctors, nurses?
yeah, this year it fluctuates every year depending on the volunteers that are able to come. We have like this April, we had 4 general surgeries. So we worked with 2 surgeons in each, and then we had CRNAs for each of them. Each bed had a CRNA. We have about 10 or 12 nurses, staff nurses that fluctuate between doing pre-op PACU or they are scrubbing in if we don't necessarily have enough scrub techs. And then we have circulators. They're the circulator nurses for the OR. I'd say in total, it's probably less than 30 altogether for our surgical team.
Okay. Does everybody work each other's jobs, like nurse-wise?
Yeah. A lot of the CRNAs do work with the anesthesiologist. We have a couple of them that showed this year. And then we had a lot of CRNAs that were very helpful. And we all basically just help each other out and do a teamwork type of thing to help the surgeons and help the flow of the patient care.
When I was overseas in Africa, I was on a Marine deployment. I was the medical guy, and we also worked with the local population, and we set up medical tents and worked wherever we could. What were your facilities like? Were you in tents? Were you in actual buildings? When you got to the buildings, were they not ready to be used and you had to redress them? How did that go?
Yeah, that's a good question. So for the past years, even before I went, we had a close relationship with a local trauma hospital within the city that we worked with. And they were willing and able to give us 2 of their ORs to use and let us come in and put shelves up and put our supplies in the middle of the hallway and let us work to help the patients come in that we needed to see. But now this year we had a surgery center donated to us at the
Right.
right outside the compound. And we have 3 working theaters there and a PACU and a pre-op and 2 wards that were able to now not go to the local hospital and able to really help more people out at the surgery center that we have that was nicely donated to us. And for us, it was a dream that had really helped increase our patient care.
I see a lot of photos of you with children. Do you do any volunteer work at an orphanage there, or are they just children that come into the compound?
No, yeah, that's a good question too. The compound is run by the state of the country, like the country, but then there's a state within that. And these are kids that are brought in through social services that have been abused or human trafficked and used for against the labor laws. And so they come
Which is
in.
rife in that part of the world, unfortunately.
Unfortunately, yeah. So they come into our facility, the compound, and we rehabilitate them. They go to school, they learn to read, write in English. We give them medical care, food, housing, and really get them like grown to the point where they can go back to their family. A lot of times, especially in that part of the world, some families can't afford like they have 6 kids and let's say the mother died in childbirth. They can't afford all of the 6 kids. We work with the families and help them out. And then we help the children out as well. And that's when they come to us and we reconnect them with their family. If they've been doing labor up at the lake, we call it, or outside of the current city of where they're from. And we bring them back and reconnect them with their family when they're able to and ready to. So that's why you see me with some kids running around and playing on the compound. They're there we're rehabilitating them.
You see kids that you saw the year before, or are they always new?
No, I've seen a couple kids that grow up in front of me. Every time I come back, there's this one little boy that I love, and he has grown so much every year I go. He's still there. And some kids stay there until they age out at 18. We don't like to just kick them out of the compound, but for other purposes, we connect them with apartments that were donated to us and really get them into tech school. Some of them go to college and finish high school and then are off to college on a scholarship.
This compound is open year round.
It is it's not open to the public, but it's open if there's a kid that's in need and we have space. They work with the government and bring them to us and we rehabilitate them and get them connected to their families.
Children who are cast aside for whatever reasons, the family could be financial reasons. I've seen that in multiple areas of the globe. Does this disproportionately affect females, the girls, or did you see that among boys and girls equally?
I think it's equally. A lot of the boys are used for labor, I'd say, but there's a lake nearby, a massive lake that is really needed by the Ghanaian people that they use for water and fishing. And fishing is a big thing up in that region of Ghana. A lot of these little kids will go out on these boats with the fishermen, and they're basically helping their families back at home pay for their siblings or their parents to get food. And they're taken at a young age. And that's when we go in and really rescue them out of that situation, because they should be in school learning and being an 8-year-old, 6-year-old child and not on the lake. So more boys, I'd say, but there's a good amount of girls there as well, but just in different situations than the boys
Yeah.
sometimes.
When I was in Africa, there was a volunteer opportunity, and it broke my heart because you were told to give the kids anything that they could eat on the spot, because if you gave them a toy or anything that they brought outside of the area, they'd be beaten for it. Yeah, and because I was in Djibouti, Africa,
Okay.
in the Horn of Africa, East Africa, and I've never been to Ghana, but Djibouti, they really go through it over there. People there they don't have much. There was rumors about they drink goat's blood for the iron content, and it was really heartbreaking to see.
Yeah, it's really heartbreaking. It is. Every time I go, I don't want to come back home. I just rather stay there and help, because the amount, even the smallest touch, compliment, hug thing
Yeah.
that you do, play with the children, it means the world to them. You really make a difference in that way. We get a lot of donations from people that will donate shoes, clothes, toys. There's a school on the compound. They'll donate school content that they need, pencils, markers, things like that, that those children are so fortunate for, instead of just you giving them a phone and playing around with them.
Yeah.
It's bigger than that.
What was stunning to me is that at the same time, I have never seen human beings who are capable of so much joy and happiness. And they're living in these towns that are pressed right next to the highway. Like you have like the highway, the curb, and then the house will literally start less than a foot from the highway. That's how important roads are to some of these areas. It's the only contact with the world that they had. And these towns, they have the goats where there were just fields of garbage and metal cans. The goats they treated it almost like they were grazing on a grassy knoll, except it was garbage. And, we were in an area that was heavy with malaria, and we were taking our doxycycline, and you just see such poverty. And at the same time, you see so many examples of dignity, people who are just grateful and have so much joy. And it just makes you reflect on yourself, because you can go back home and here we have so much of abundance, and so many people can't find it in them to be happy or to look on the bright side. But you go to like where I was in Djibouti, Africa, and you see such a reason to be negative, but what you actually witness is quite the opposite.
Yeah, I couldn't put it better. That's exactly it. The smallest thing of water, clean water, for example, the smallest thing of electricity, to have the sand running. They're so appreciative of it. You get in the bus and you arrive at the compound, and these children, some of them don't know the newer volunteers it's like their first time there. They are running to them. They're so happy to see
Yeah, see your
all of
pictures.
us. Yeah, to see all of us, and they're so grateful for it. It brings tears to my eyes every time. They are just waiting to help you off the bus and help carry your luggage and get you in, and they're just so happy to have your help and to see you and to play with you and to do things that we over here in the Western world would take advantage of. And we complain and we X, Y, and Z, and are always grateful for the smallest things. When you go over there, it's really life changing, especially for new people that come with us each year.
Yeah, we would do a live fire exercise. Like I said, I was attached to the Marines, and we would be shooting downrange, and we would have to stop because the local Djiboutians would run onto the field and pick up all the empty shells. And if we didn't stop, a lot of them would run anyway. So you don't obviously want to hurt anybody. But like I said, you just see that abject poverty, but at the same time, more people with more dignity than you've ever seen in your life. And it just throws you for a loop, and it affects me sometimes at work. If I start getting into, sometimes it's a busy day, you're having a bad day, you are complaining. And then it just hits me. Come on, you know better, man. You're having a good life. You have a great job. You're comfortable. You're not starving. And that's how that has affected me.
Yeah. It's almost, and I see the same thing at work every day, down from, everyone basically. It's the complaining of it. And it's like, you have no idea what some people anywhere in the world are having so much more adversity to things. And us here are complaining, even though we have a roof over our head and we have food and we have clean water. We can turn on the sink and have clean water, or the fridge. And there, it's not like that. Sometimes some people have a little bit of a culture shock when they come and they realize that, oh, they had to shower with a bucket, right? Or you have to drink water from like a bag, and you have to be more careful about those things. But at the end of the trip, the newer volunteers, it's the 180. They really get this life-changing experience, and they want to come back every year after that because it's rewarding. And you get to really be.
I want to get into that with you. What are those little changes? You're using a bucket and things. What are the,
Yeah.
at first, what was the most shocking for you? Because obviously you're used to it now, but what are some of those details?
Yeah. I would think the most shocking thing was the bagged water. I've been to other parts of the world where they're less fortunate to things than we are in America. But I've never seen the bag water. The bag water was new for me. And it's the bag water that gets delivered, and you brush your teeth with it. When the power goes out, you wash your hair and body with it.
How big
Because
is this bag? Is it
it's size
like a
of
garbage bag size?
like two of your cell phones, I'd say, of your iPhone.
Oh,
If
okay.
you have an iPhone, I'd say two of those.
Affordable kind of thing.
Yeah. And a lot of us now will just rip open the side of it and just drink out of it that way. That's how you know that you're not a newbie, you're local. A lot of us do that now. The newer people that come are like, what are you doing? But that was the biggest shocking thing. And I think that for me, it was realizing that you can't just turn on the faucet and you can't just go to a bucket and get water. I know in Mexico, they have bottled water there nicely for you because you can't always drink the water. But there in Ghana, it's not even that. It's a plastic bag of just water that you get.
What's the bathroom situation like?
Yeah. So
Does that compound have plumbing? I'm thinking
yeah,
maybe.
they do. They have plumbing. There's Wi-Fi
Okay.
as well. I will say that, and when I first went there, I was asked, what do you think about our living situation for volunteers? Because they like open feedback, right? Just like any nonprofit, there's always room for improvement. And I said, I
Yeah.
will have to tell you, this is like a 4-star compound compared to what I've seen in the past in other places of the world. They have a volunteer house that has apartments in it. There's a living room. There's about 4 rooms that they put bunk beds in, and you can house up to 4 people in each room. And then there's a shower, like a faucet coming out of the wall for the shower.
Do they divide you into like nurses sleep here, physicians here? Is there a little bit of a hierarchy?
No. And that is one thing that I love about this organization, that it's very
Well, that's great.
well known. We are all a team. We work as a team, and we all will do everything together. And you have people that run the compound that you respect and you listen to. But when it comes to the medical side, we all help each other, and we're all a team player in that concept. Somebody recently asked me why I keep going back every year. And I always say one of the things that comes to my mind right away and includes how great this organization is that I meet genuinely good people. And not to say that they're not good people around this world, but when you
Right.
go and you work together, and I always meet such fantastic, good hearted people from around the world. And it's amazing. Every year, I still feel that feeling after the trip is done and we have our closing ceremony. And it's always life changing, no matter how many years you go. And that's one of the things that I absolutely love about the organization. And I feel like it's a second home, like a second family. And I said that recently. You make so many friends, you make so many people that are with you for life and connecting and networking, and you really get to be a part of another family almost is what we call it.
Is everybody in your group from America or international?
There are people that are international that come that are separate from our American group. A lot of the people that come from America are from the West Coast, Idaho, California, Seattle, Oregon, Utah, Arizona, and then a sprinkle of people are from the East Coast, like DC and Florida.
Okay. It's nice to hear that all this, well, all the things that people donate is actually getting to the kids and the Ghanans.
Yeah, we bring a bunch of when we go, there's 2 trips, medical trips. They go in October and April, and then there's an eye mission in between those trips. In October, it's
What's
most
that? What's an eye mission?
they do cataracts.
Oh, eye, literally eye.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, you're okay. They do like cataracts. They do a lot of glasses. Kids need glasses, right? And
Yeah.
they can't see in school. And it is rewarding to see them be able to see for the first time, basically. Or you have like elderly people that have cataract severe and you fix their lenses and all of a sudden they are crying because they can see again. It's very rewarding. Yeah. Yeah. That's exactly it.
Because they've like been blind, but it gets so bad.
It
And
gets
now they
so
can,
bad. And
yeah.
they're so patiently waiting because they know that we're
Yeah.
here to help them. These people are so strong and they really are resilient to this. And when you can help them out in the smallest way, they're so grateful for it. So in October, we do a lot of ortho procedures along as with general surgery and plastics too.
Mhm.
And then in April, we do gen surge.
One of the things that this must highlight, it certainly highlights it for me, hearing you talk about it, is just how intricate healthcare is. I mean, this is community health on steroids, it sounds like.
Yeah.
Like you were saying, kids needing glasses. I actually was almost left back in kindergarten and first grade because no one realized I couldn't see the board till second grade. So when you say something like that, that is such an important part of the development. What's going to happen to that kid who can't read or can't look at the board simply because they need glasses? I mean, you're talking about their entire life could possibly change, and then all the healthcare, all the health related issues that come with that. Maybe they don't get the job that they want, or they don't they have a life where they're not as mobile as they could be, or they have a rougher job and they get injured. It's like so important. You're talking about you talk about these kids on an emotional level. You talk about the orthodontics. I mean, everyone needs braces. You get mouth pain, you can't eat right. Yeah, just there's so many things that you can, even without you saying it, all the nuance comes through. And we actually did a community health clinical together, and it was probably one of the it was a very unique clinical because we actually went to people's apartments and saw how some people live, and you get a real taste of just how important community health is.
Yeah.
But what you're talking about here is literally in a different part of the world. Everything you're talking about highlights just how nuanced medicine is. And it's not just about, oh, what are you sick? What's your ailment or what's your injury? And here's your medication. Here's the treatment plan.
Yeah, I completely agreed. I remember that community health and I, to this day, rave about it because I think that we had a really good clinical in that. We got to
We had a
really
good one.
see the community in Philadelphia through other people's lenses. And I always think about that. But this is it is like a community health on steroids. And you get to go out into different parts of the world and you really get to get a sense of how people live and how they adjust to things that we take for granted in healthcare so much. And that even means like going to the Pyxis and grabbing Motrin. A lot of these people don't even have access to that. So a lot of the things that we take for granted, it's really on a bigger spectrum when you get to go out and see it in a different lens. And I always say that.
You think about going to another part of the world in the future?
Yeah, we always joke around. We always say, oh, I wish this organization would have like another location in like Kenya or Uganda.
Because you like this particular organization.
Yeah, I love this particular organization.
I could see that. I
Yeah.
can see that.
And of course, that's not possible because they're like moving at high speed and growing so much in Ghana. But I do. My friend and I talk about it frequently. I would love to do that. It's finding the right organization and really getting your feet wet in that. This is my second one. I've gone to the DR before with a different organization.
Okay.
And that was a different experience as well. That was more clinical experience and pharmaceutical experience. And when you get to Ghana, this is what I do with this organization is a little bit different. But I would love to. I would love to explore more parts of especially East Africa and really get my feet wet in that and help more people. I always think about it.
Let's see. Okay. I'm going to circle around to nursing school because I have a lot of students that watch this.
Yeah. I think it was that clinical for sure. And then it was this psych clinical. When we went to the psychiatric ward and some of those hospitals, that was
Yeah.
a very experience as well, I'd say. So those two clinicals were top for me.
It's interesting you say that. Those would be one of my top two. The psych ward, I learned that sometimes what a patient is coming in for, like what their families have told you is the reason that they're in the psych ward, may not be the reason. They were, I don't know how many times, it felt like a lot, but maybe it was 3 or 4 times where there was an elderly person in the psych ward. They were delivered there by their family. Someone said, oh, grandma, she pulled out a knife or whatever it was. And then they were unreachable for quite some time. And I know that when you're taking care of somebody and, you're even the caretaker on the insurance, there are like twice a year, I believe, you're allowed to have a break. You can take your
Yeah.
loved one to the hospital and they'll watch them for a few days because it does get tiring. And I've had people on this podcast who own a home health care agency and, they call it caretaker burnout, just like nurse burnout, but it's quite tiring. And there are some family members that will drop off someone in the psych ward. And I saw that quite a few times. And this person's here for a violent act and then they don't seem like it. And now you can't contact their loved ones. So that's where I got that from the psych ward.
Yeah. I've seen that. I saw the same exact thing. And
Oh, you did see that?
yeah,
Okay.
literally the same.
I'm not trying to paint the picture of, oh, these horrible caretakers, these family members that abandon I'm not saying that, but
No.
it did teach me that sometimes if a patient can't articulate for themselves why they're in your care, sometimes the reason stated may not be the reason. So just don't prejudge. I guess that's the skinny of it.
That's
Don't
the thing.
prejudge.
Yeah. And they say that in 101 nursing, right? Everybody has their own story. Don't judge it by what the visit would be. You really got to know the patient and get to know them,
Yeah.
especially in the psych ward.
And then the community health, especially we were talking about Philadelphia, and you have a big street there called Spring Garden Street.
Yeah.
And on one side you have it leads into North Philly. So I think it's Fishtown and it becomes, Northern Philadelphia. And on the other side, you have Center City and two different classes of people. And on the northern side of Spring Garden Street, people live 20 years less simply because of their life, their status in life, and that was kind of an eye opener. And we were fortunate because I believe our clinical was at
Yeah, it was at that. I was in like a center, I believe, and
Yeah.
that was put in the middle of the community. And we literally would drive there, or some of us would take the bus to that facility, and we would be in the middle of the community, which I thought was really rewarding and really opened your
Right.
eyes to everything.
and it was a community Fishtown that's gentrifying. And when you think about being priced out of your home, you don't think about the property taxes. So
Right.
the area is becoming bougie
Really,
and the property taxes are skyrocketing. And so somebody might own their house, but then the property taxes go from, I'll just think of a number, 2,000 a year to 5,000 a year, and you lose your home.
Oh yeah,
And
yeah.
because we were partners, a gentleman, I think we were assigned to,
Mhm.
she'd go to people's apartments. We saw just how some of these places I didn't even want to sit down. I didn't want to sit in the chair. You
Right.
saw, it kind of reminded me of that example where a mom brings her son to the ER and the kid is allergic to cats. And the doctor says, well, why don't you just get rid of the cat? And finally the mom says, well, the cat kills the mice. And it just opens your mind up to what people are going through.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that was a profound clinical for me.
I agree. I wrote about it in a research thing for my nursing residency, my first year at Children's, a nurse residency program for a year for new grads. And I remember I wrote a whole paper on it and did research on a broader scope of things, but wrote about our experience there in that clinical and how profound it was. And it made you go back home every time when you leave the center more humbled and more have a different outlook on life, in my opinion at least.
Yeah, because half the people we work with were kids, teenagers, and you just see how they grew up, and you know how I had a pretty good life. So after 21, I moved to Washington Heights in New York, and I experienced a lot of the B side of life. But as a kid, I had a great childhood, two parents, and you do a clinical like that. You just see the impact, the mental impact, spiritual, emotional, physical, and it just blew my mind.
Yeah, it blew my
I
mind.
mean, I had seen a lot even before then, but I'm not standing in someone's apartment in the past and talking to their mom and their daughter is here. It's
And a lot of them have
what
security issues. Remember, I think that there weren't many grocery stores. So they had markets that had really, just
they
your
don't have any.
junk food.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's no inclination to, I guess, in their day-to-day life in the area to show them the benefit of eating good food. And even if they wanted to, it's expensive.
Exactly. Very expensive. Very expensive.
That's why I really appreciated that place we did the clinical with their food drives, and they had these little baskets and they would deliver them.
Yes.
I was very impressed with that facility.
And our clinical teacher instructor, he was amazing in helping explain those things down to us and how exactly the center works with the community, not just for the community, but they work hand in hand together. And I thought that was great.
And you were talking about the people who would do these missions, these medical missions to Africa, and probably people, in my experience, who work in community health. That preceptor was probably pushing 70, and he was still doing this.
Like amazing, right?
And he loved to do it.
Yeah. It was like his heart.
That's commitment.
He was very committed. And I remember being profound by that. And he really loved his job. And he really takes that community as a second family. And he was very integrated in that community, for sure.
Yeah, he was not faking it.
No.
And you'll see in a hospital, you meet a lot of great people, but it is a job, and you can tell that when they clock out, they go home. But this guy, he lived it.
He sure did. He lived it every day, 24/7 even. Everybody knew his name in the community, and he practically knew a lot of everybody's name and knew where
First
they
name
lived.
basis, and they knew his.
Yeah.
And they weren't acting like, oh, you're so nice to me. Sometimes people, they'll deliver groceries and they say kind words and people will receive that because why not? They really cared for this guy.
Yeah, and he really cares for them. And you can tell. He'd sit down in their apartment or their house or their little area room even and really knew everybody in the room and knew everything that was going on within that family at that time.
Yeah, he was a great guy. It's like, is there another clinical that was profound to you, or those pretty much community health and the psych?
I'd say labor and delivery.
Labor and delivery. Okay.
That
I was about to say pediatrics.
Yeah.
I had a clinical at the Children's Hospital.
But I didn't get to go to the Children's Hospital. I had to go to the other hospital in Philly, which is fine too. But I think that I already knew I wanted to do peds. And I think that I already knew what my mindset. So no matter if the clinical was hard, difficult, easy, or I loved that hospital for clinical, it didn't sway my opinion. But I think labor and delivery, I was in the delivery room for this one patient and really right there in center. And that was very profound experience. Like adrenaline rush. Very interesting.
Labor delivery is the one where I didn't get to do a lot.
Yeah.
I put a white coat on, they don't mind the male in the room.
No.
But something with the male nurse, they don't like it.
No. And I see it even to this day in kids. I see it sometimes in certain population of
they don't like the male nurses don't how do I want to say this?
They would rather have
the kids are just more uncomfortable with male nurses. Okay.
Yeah. Sometimes I'm in charge and a nurse will come up to me and be like, we need to change the assignment. They would like a female nurse, which is fine. It's okay.
Yeah, I understand.
I understand. But labor and delivery clinical in nursing school was really great, really great. And you got to see a whole different side of what goes on in the inner city of Philadelphia at 4 p.m. during labor and delivery. I really like that clinical actually.
Yeah. I'm just a spectator there. Come
Yeah.
outside the room. I did see um, I saw circumcisions and I saw a C-section. That was crazy.
Oh, that's interesting. That's awesome. I didn't get to see a C-section.
It helped because my
Yeah.
kids were both C-section.
And so you knew how everything was going to go.
That's why I was scared.
I know that's like the double-edged sword with healthcare providers. Too much sometimes, but you know what to call out for and what not. Yeah.
And it's also intimidating. It's the one thing I really don't want to do. You have a pregnant mom. You're looking at the board. You're seeing the health of the child on a screen,
Mhm.
and the nurse. I probably nurse has the most power in LND than I've ever seen. You know,
Oh.
because they are the ones that call the physicians when there's an issue. They're looking at the board. They're watching the monitors. Like I have to say, nurse power up the wazoo in LND.
Yeah, LND. I think LND is a little difficult too. You have to. It's like a whole
Yeah.
different world of nursing in a good. And you have two patients instead of one, kind of. Especially on the postpartum floor, you're taking care of mom.
Right. At the same time,
Yeah,
mom and the baby.
yeah. So
And now with today's climate nationally, depending on where you are in the country, oh my, I don't want that job.
yeah, it's difficult. It's really it's a difficult, rewarding job at the same time though. But I think it's challenging.
Oh yeah. Oh no, my heart goes out to those nurses, and you're automatically up here and I'm down here. Okay.
No.
Oh, that's what I wanted to say with community health. But one of the things with community health that changed me, going back to that real quick, is when I have a patient, I pay more attention to what they do for a living. If someone has a respiratory issue, what is it that they do? If they're in construction, even, it's like, well, are you given a mask, or do you use, are you maximizing safety precautions? That is the long-term effect that community health has had on me on a
That is a great thing that you brought up. I would have never thought about that. Mind you, I don't do adults and kids aren't doing their work, but that is actually something I've never thought about. And I think that's very important. If you have adults that come in that do or work for a cleaning business and they're around like the chemical cleaning stuff all day, I would have never, as a nurse, thought about that. I think that's fantastic. That's a great question to ask because that's very true. And you learn that through clinical and community health for sure.
Yeah, community health really opened my eyes to that. And if you want nursing to expand and get better as a practice, for me, I have to participate in it. I can't just wait for it to change. I got to change myself.
Correct.
Spread the word, and who knows, maybe you can make an impact on a new nurse or somebody who's coming in.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. I've had nurses that I've trained write me these letters afterwards about how much of a difference and how much confidence they feel going in on their own when they're off orientation. And the skills that you've taught them are just so small to you, but are just so incredibly monumental to that newer nurse. I think that is really important. And I am so proud that when I see them on the floor now, I have full confidence in them because I know that they know what they're doing and they're just fantastic at it.
Have you been a preceptor a few times?
Yeah, I've I've precepted a couple of nurses now some are into charge nursing now. Another one is on the newer side, but is doing really great. In my part of the world, we have to call the doctor at a time, like the resident. We work with a lot of surgeons on our floor.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to call the resident at certain times, and a lot of
They can be hard to contact.
Yeah. And a lot of people say that. And we know the little trick to get into contacting them. But a lot of the newer nurses are very afraid because you're waking up a surgeon at 2 a.m. It can be scary. But you instill this communication skill with them and how to do it, that now they flourish with it, which I think is really important to have that great communication like open with the surgeon or resident or doctor that you work with every day. The confidence and the extrovert in me has completely grown exponentially, especially from being an educator and helping new grads out and then having that confidence in talking with and working with interdisciplinary teams. You're working with people that are above you. Really get that general respect from each other. I've learned how to communicate and learn skills in that way as well.
I would imagine now if someone wants to go into nursing, they probably have seen so many TikTok videos and things like that that give them a perception of nursing that perhaps you didn't have when you arrived at your hospital and you were a new nurse that you're encountering more. Do you find
They love to
there is a
text.
lot more media influence, even on myself as an adult 44-year-old man? There's a lot of, when I examine something, a lot of areas of my perception that I learned through social media and the internet that I even have to say to myself, hey, take a break. This is not real life, or listen, find somebody who's an expert who actually does it. Do you find a lot more young people or more?
Yeah. I always say,
Here?
yeah, no, I do. I always say,
Well,
this is not Grey's
you have to
Anatomy.
let you screw me up.
Yeah, no, it's okay.
Uh,
I always say that this is not Grey's Anatomy when I have my first week on orientation with the newer nurses. I always say that this is not Grey's Anatomy. This is not like a TikTok thing that you see about nursing. This is true
Yeah.
nursing to its core, and it changes every hour that on your shift. It's not the doctors, and at least where I work, are very busy. They're not going to get your patient up like you see in a TV show, or some things are not as dramatic as what you see online. Some things are just different. And especially the newer generation, they love to text. And we have these phones at work. And I'm like, you need to pick up the phone and call and actually have a conversation. Sometimes you can't just do it over text. It needs a call.
It's funny. It's funny you mentioned it's when you talk to you might talk to a new nurse, like things don't happen exactly like they do on TV. I was doing a podcast with a paramedic in Kentucky or Missouri, and he voiced that some of the younger paramedics don't last because their perception was based on what they saw on television. They thought that they were going to do a lot more high stakes type of things, and he's like, a lot of times my job is to stick with that addict and get them into a rehab program. And it's a lot of work. It's tedious. And he loves to do it. It's his favorite thing to do, but it's not glamorous. Not something you would see on television.
Correct.
But it's interesting you brought up that point.
Yeah.
That people have this idea from television.
It's not the glamorous thing is helping your patient and watching their progress, at least for me, because we can watch it. You're not like an ED where you ship them off to the floor. But it isn't all like roses and sunshine. There are bad shifts, right? That's reality. And you go home and you're thinking about your patient at night. You're like, oh my, you're like running things over again. And you're making sure that when you get there in the morning that they're still alive and still doing okay. It's not always
But I will
glamorous.
say in the emergency department, sorry. And again, I apologize. There's a little delay. I'm not trying to cut you off.
No, you're fine.
I'm going to have to edit that so I don't look like such a jerk off. But you were saying in the emergency department, it is very gratifying, though, to see someone come in with like, they're stable, they're alive, they're going to make it. Same with anything else. Somebody comes in, it's genuine sepsis, long road ahead in their recovery, but it's fantastic to send them to the floor and they're stable. So that's what we feel. That's our satisfaction.
That's your rewarding experience, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
A rewarding experience.
Yeah. Yeah, that I get.
You're not dead.
No, but no, it is rewarding. Don't get me wrong. I absolutely love what I do. And I love what I do outside of the hospital as well, like traveling to these countries and helping out in that way. But someone has to be honest. It's not all glamorous. It's not all you're running around, you haven't eaten lunch yet, you barely have water, you're getting things done. I think that newer nurses need to hear that in order to not think that you're walking into this unit or wherever you're working at, where it's, oh my gosh, the sun is shining on you and it's roses and everyone is happy doing their job. We all are happy at doing our job, but there are moments throughout your shift where you're like, man, I feel deflated, right?
Sometimes more moments than sometimes you feel that way from the majority of the shift.
Yeah, you do. I think it's important for them to hear that and to know that.
And sometimes it's not because you're getting beaten down on. Sometimes you just want to do more. You see somebody and you're like, oh man, I thought this was going to be effective, but it's not. It
Right.
gets you down.
Or we don't know what's going on with this patient. Oh, we can't figure it out. It's like trying to figure out everything and put it all together. You need a little bit more patience in figuring it out.
And staggering how much clinicals don't show you that. You could be there. You have the nurse right there. You're following them around. You're doing whatever you have to do, and still doesn't come to you. You still don't feel it.
Yeah. When I first started, I was like, this is not what a clinical showed me at all, which is fine, but it's a little shocked. I will be honest. I was. You can
I
tell the
remember
new
telling
one.
huh?
You can tell the newer nurses, they're full of energy and they're running
I
around.
I would talk to my mom on the phone after a shift at the step down IC, and I would say, I can't even articulate how much I have to do in a day and juggle. It's doesn't even seem human.
And then don't worry, make sure you eat and drink and take care of yourself too, is the things that we on our unit need to constantly remind each other
Yeah.
about.
Yeah. You got to drink. If 3 days a week you're not eating right or hydrating right, it's going to affect your life.
100%. Couldn't agree more. Could not agree more.
And before we go, I just wanted to voice or ask, are there any conflicts that you have with the system overall? Like, to me, hold on, when people talk about hospitals, I've heard people say, oh, this hospital, or that program, or this, and I always say, the hospital doesn't mean anything if the nurses aren't up to par. What is your experience with that? Is it do you sometimes feel like the system is sometimes in your way? You're trying to deliver care, and the system is in your way. And in those moments, who are you relying on? Is it a special relationship with a physician? Is it certain nurses that you're working with? How do you deal with that? Because you want to talk about the stressors of our job. It's, obviously we have to have an industry in order to take care of the most amount of people, but sometimes that industry can't account for the individual, and that's our job. But that can sometimes feel like an uphill battle that we may not even win, but we have to fight it anyway. Do you experience that? And how do you cope with that?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. The hospital system. So I think it really impacted me during COVID. Our unit turned into a
Yeah.
COVID unit. And we
For
were,
kids only, or
yeah, for kids only. And we took,
because not to
one
cut
kid.
you off,
Yeah.
because I was in Queens when it was coming out. I do the first wave never saw children, and then there was like the second wave or maybe the third. It was stillbirths, and then the children started coming later.
Yeah. We saw like the second wave, I think. I'm pretty sure. And then we saw Miss C on top of it. And
You
during
saw
the
what on top of it?
Miss C, the
Oh,
multi-inflammatory system in children. And that was because they were exposed to COVID. And then all of a sudden their organ, 2 out of the many organs that they have started to shut down. But I was one of the first nurses with the first COVID patient at Children's on our floor. And I remember everybody scrambling around. But throughout that whole COVID process, we really felt depleted. Like literally, we relied on each other. And I think our bond on that unit grew really close. We really leaned on each other for support when maybe we weren't getting it from the hospital entirely. Not to say that every hospital is different and how they manage and run that business of that hospital, but we were the only unit with COVID. Every other unit was not taking COVID. And the only reason why was because we had special ventilation on that unit,
right.
like with negative and positive pressure throughout the full unit. The hallways.
Did you have a lot of children in your unit?
Yeah, we did. We had like the whole floor used to be filled with COVID. And there was,
Yeah, our whole.
yeah.
In the beginning, you tried to do the isolation rooms, and then it was like, no, you're donning PPE the whole shift because the whole place is.
Oh yeah, we had to shut it down. Half the unit was COVID. We barely got any, like we got all we were getting on the other side were traumas and non-elective emergent surgical procedures that needed to be done. Everything else elective was cut off. And I think that We had a charge nurse on that side as well that would run the floor for the COVID on that side. You have people donning PPE, putting it on, putting it off, people wiping you down. And it became a lot. A lot of nurses left after that. And I think that what could have gone better is more support from our higher ups at that time. I think
Many of whom probably were not even at the hospital, right? During that time?
they're out
Remote
playing golf.
workers?
No, I'm kidding. But they were not at the hospital at all. And it started to be, I don't know if you see now on social media, the memes of the pizza parties and the nursing like weekly
Right.
things. Yeah, we were basically very vocal in saying that we don't need that. You know, what we need is like a presence of you on the floor, walk around like while we're working, come see a shift, come help us wipe a person coming out of a COVID room down because the nurses were the only ones going in. Many people, even doctors, were afraid to go in. So I think that grew us together. We lean on each other now, even to this day. When shifts get hard, the people that are still there that went through that time and experience on that floor, we are very close. And we really support each other through difficult shifts.
Yeah, because I've been bouncing around, but you've been in the same spot. So you've really developed key relationships.
Correct.
I remember I was given 28 patients or 20, 24, 25 patients when COVID broke out before the travel nurses came to supplement our ranks. And I was a night shifter. And I bring this up because I'd love to have you back on an episode where there's no technical malfunctions, just to talk about COVID, because listen, I get it. You know, people have their opinions on it. Things were not handled the way they should have been. There was a lack of transparency in other ways, but you know, I think somebody was telling me there was a big, huge facility erected for COVID patients nearby and nobody was ever taken to them. Someone's mother had worked there. She never saw anybody. So there's a lot of stuff out there. But my place in Queens, we were full, over 100 people. There were shifts where I lost almost half a dozen people. Our PACU was converted as a sort of spill tank, like a spill tank. I don't know what you want to call it. People we just could not save, but they couldn't go home, obviously. And, you know, there would be a fresh batch of people up there every week. And we're talking like numbers of 40 or 50. It was a horrendous time period. And a lot of, like you're saying, your facility was full. And we had a lot of people. Yes, they had a lot of people had, and you're talking about children, mothers, stillbirths. I just want to put it out there because sometimes more and more I've been hearing in my, you know, conversation with people or at the gym or so on or whatever it is. There's more and more a association of nurses of what we do to whatever they disliked about the pandemic period. And I was just doing my job. You know, it's from hazard pay. My place was full. Your place was full.
Yeah, we were cutting wipes. We were literally paper towel wipes and then soaking them to make our own wipes because Oxivir wipes, they were like gold to us. We had to save those precious ones. So I think that, you're right. We no hazard pay, nothing. And we literally busted our butt to save those patients and really take care of the best of our ability. So props to you.
We should talk about this at length one day. I would love to have a COVID episode or a COVID series just to talk about what nurses were doing at that time.
Yeah, no, it's interesting to hear your perspective as from adult world. And then I'm sure it's interesting to hear our perspective from like a pediatric world during that time.
I know you have to go. I'm not going to keep you on, but it was one of those things where in the beginning, well, our problem in Queens, because we got hit before the whole country. I remember when I walked in, and this is before the travel nurses, when it was like 100 people. Our biggest issue in the beginning was we didn't have enough translators. We had a lot of people from overseas coming to New York to get care. You know, for example, I know there were stories coming out of India where it was pretty much pay for play, and even that might not get you oxygen. You know, so you know, we do medical missions to Africa. Somebody can afford to fly to the United States to get care for their grandfather who has COVID. They probably would rather go to New York City than a hospital in Ghana or Djibouti. And that happened a lot. And I went to work and we could not understand anybody. And we had like these 3 virtual translators. And those are the types of things I wanted people to know what we were going through.
Yeah. Wow. That is unbelievable.
It just seems that as time goes by, the frustration of the period is kind of uh, burying some of the nursing or physician or whoever's healthcare experience of it. So,
Yeah.
but thank you for saying that. And thank you for what you were doing.
No,
Uh,
of course.
but thank you, Emily, for doing this. I am really appreciative of you coming on my podcast and telling me about your experiences in the pediatric trauma burn unit
Yeah. Thank you
and
for,
catching up with her. I'm sorry, I cut you off again.
no, thank you.
It's the
It's
delay.
okay.
It's
Thank
the
you for
delay.
having me. I think this is great. And I think that what you're doing is fantastic. And thank you for your service. And thank you for everything. I think that
Thank
what
you
you're
for your
doing is great.
service. And catching up with an old friend from nursing school, my favorite thing to do. That's the podcast gives me a good excuse to reach out to people that I'm curious about,
Yeah.
catching up with them.
Yeah. I think this is great. I love it. I think that us talking today was
Yeah.
fantastic and help other people and other people can know the different worlds of nursing.
Yeah, it's easy to kind of knock nursing. It's easy to get into that negative, that because you're overwhelmed. But there are so many things you could do with the BSN. So many places that you can go. You can work everywhere and anywhere. You could do missions. You do have a trustworthy occupation that you could take to other fields of study. And I want people to feel empowered with that, especially young people. Take that BSN and make an impact in this world in a big
Yeah.
way.
Totally agree with everything that you said. Nursing is a
And
multitude of regions.
and you have to come back on so we can have an episode where there's no technical difficulties.
Of course.
I got
I'd be happy to come back on.
you can tell somebody, yeah, I did this podcast. Boy, it was just backwards. Did not
No,
know what he was doing. The sound was crazy. I was thrown off the computer twice.
no, it's okay. Hey, it's life. It might be me, but it's life. It's definitely
I feel
okay.
like I'm working a nursing shift right now,
Right?
making do.
Making you do all this technical stuff. But
Uh,
thank you for having
Well,
me.
take care of yourself. Don't burn the
You,
candle at both ends, you
you
know?
too. Have fun with your children and your wife this weekend.
Yeah, summer, the
Yeah.
pool is ready. I planted 150 flowers.
Wow.
Yeah, I really did it up. I try to create like a magical environment for them.
Oh, it's fantastic. Yeah. No, I see it
I
on
got
Instagram.
4 vegetable gardens going.
Wow. That's impressive.
Yeah, it's like that community health. It's like
Yeah.
get your hands dirty, see where the strawberries come from, see what good food tastes like, so they're inspired to,
Oh, that's so
actually eat
important.
good food.
Yeah, that's so important for that age, though, for kids to learn that and see that. And I think that's fantastic.
Yeah, kids are. I'm sure. Well, I'm sorry. Um, Having kids, you want to talk about like being a nurse and healthcare. It's like or even doing this podcast, you look at the world and you see some of the cynicism and negativity, and you're just trying to do the best you can. Once you make the decision not to go that route, to like, what can I do to make my experience with social media more positive? What can I do to like actually put my money where my mouth is and promote something that is about people coming together and being positive for the sake of my girls? Because it's like,
Yeah,
I don't want them to get caught in that negative trap because it's so easy to be that way.
it is so easy. I think that's a great thing that you're doing then. Because if I was a parent, I would want the same thing. The negative side of social media is ugly. So anything that you
You
can,
think one day,
yes,
you're
hopefully
working great
one
with
day.
these kids,
Yes, I'm hoping one day. I
you
turned
know?
30 recently, so it's moving.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you.
I thought you were like 18 when I was in nursing school, so I didn't think that you were 30.
No, I'm
30 is
30.
when it starts.
I know, I feel it.
Congratulations, you're not in jail and you're not dead.
I know, right? No, one day. One day kids will happen, but for the time being, the children I take care of every day are my children.
No, of course.
Yeah.
That's not a shift you could just wing
No,
it. I guess you can wing it, but they're children.
they are, and they're close to my heart.
Well, thank you so much. It's
Yes.
been a great opportunity to talk to you, and good luck with everything. And
Thank you.
like I said, got to have you back on a podcast that's working correctly. We can
Yeah.
talk about COVID and everything else.
Yes, anytime. Anytime. I'm so grateful to be here. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right.
All right, I'm going to turn it over. Thank you so much.
Bye, Glenn. Thank you so much. I appreciate your time.
Thank you. I appreciate yours.
Yes, of course.